Hey, thanks very much for attending the seminar. What I'm going to try and introduce to you is some fundamental psychology and concepts for street combat. Most martial arts systems contain valid techniques, but where they don't delve is into the real psychological applications. And that means that when you're in a confrontation, you can't just rely on the physical aspect. You have to rely on the psychology, and that's more about what a fight is. I consider fighting to be about 70% psychological. People don't realize that. They train physical, they get their punches, they get their kicks down, 70% psychological. The first thing we're going to talk about is a strategy. What a lot of people don't realize is your opponent totally controls your fight. You can have the best kicks, the best punches. If he's not open for them, you can't use them. And what that means is, come here a sec. Just take a stance.
Okay.
Any stance, go. If I decide my best technique's a lead hook punch, and he happens to be in this type of stance like a Thai boxer, that lead hook punch isn't going to get in. If he's in a lower stance where his legs are really protected, and I have really good kicks to the legs, that's not going to get in. Well, what you have to realize is that your opponent dictates to you what you're going to do. And that means that if he extends a jab, he's open somewhere. You got to move in. If you're going to strike to the knee, to the groin, you have to watch your opponent. Thanks. Okay? So always remember that your opponent is going to control the situation. And it's a hard concept because we're so conditioned to do combinations like boxers or in your katas, and you just do them, but you never put the connection. Well, what if the guy's not open for that? So I never teach to do a combination, but to let your opponent's energy dictate where you're going to go. The next concept is also part of strategy, and that's fundamental to all martial arts, and that's the yin-yang concept. Never oppose force with force. That means if someone shoves you and you're not prepared to do something, take it. Set the guy up through that. If you come up, come here a second. If you're standing here like this and he gives you a little shove in the shoulder, that's your reaction. That's a good reaction. Why it's a good reaction is because we're going to get into something called the submissive strategy. And what that means is you always play submissive when someone is going to fight you in the street. I'm not talking about the ring. I'm not talking about in the dojo. I'm talking about in the street. No one starts with you, which is our second concept, vulnerability, if they think that you're going to do something. No one walks down the street and goes, hey, isn't that Bill Wallace? I heard he's the full contact champion of the world. Let's mug him. No one's going to do that, right? Okay, so no one's going to come up to me or you if you're trained and go, this guy looks like he's going to poke me in the eye and kick me in the groin. Let's harass him. So the worst thing you can do is telegraph that you know something. For instance, this, the shove again. To do that will tip your opponent off that you're prepared to do something. That'll make him more defensive. That's the last thing you want in the street. Okay? So what you want to do is remain submissive and use that yin-yang principle. So that if you're not prepared, for example, okay, shove me again. If I'm here like this and I'm ready to go to the eyes and palm strike and get the person down on the ground, then that's great. But you may not be ready, and more times than not, you aren't ready. Because we're all typically law-abiding citizens. We walk around and trouble just comes to us. We're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay, and you just want to use that submissiveness. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Vulnerability. Use that. We just discussed it briefly, but use it. It's the biggest advantage you have in the street. And that means it's an ace up your sleeve. No one will attack you if they think you're going to do something. That means they're overconfident, and that means that you can use that psychology to undermine whatever logic is going on in their brain. Okay? Next concept is diffusing your vision. You use this to pick up clues. There are 4 ranges of fighting: kicking, boxing, trapping, and grappling. Okay? Oliver, come here. Take a stance. Kicking range is, quite obviously, that outside extension of the leg. After I throw a kick, when I step down, I'm in boxing range. If he were to slip inside that punch, we're into trapping range here, which is elbows and headbutts. And then most fights in the street end up on the ground, and that's grappling range. It's something you want to experiment with a lot. When you diffuse your vision, what you're doing is you're still communicating with this person in the street. Just relax, hands down. You're still communicating with this person in the street. But what you want to see is, like, I'm looking at him right in his eyes. Clench one of your fists. okay? I can see, don't make it so big, I can see that this right fist, okay? Shift one of your feet, okay? When he shifts, these are sometimes telltale signs of a person setting you up to kick you or to punch you. And what you want to do is learn to diffuse your vision. It's just controlling the eye muscles. And you can practice it driving your car. You know, if you're all standing here, you're looking at me, you can all see the back wall even though you're focusing on me. It's not in focus, but what happens is if you're in a situation where it's a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-1, it might be a mugging, learn to diffuse your vision because it may not be the guy who's talking to you that's setting up the fight. Okay? Thanks, Oliver. So it's very, very important. Learn to diffuse your vision. It's just a muscular thing. Diffusing the fight. Morally and legally, you always want to diffuse a fight. If someone finds out that you're trained in martial arts, obviously we all know by now that you don't have to have your hands registered with the police, but you have to diffuse a fight. You cannot use excessive force and you can't use negligence. You'll always get nailed for that. Even if you say, well, I'm the reasonable man and this guy was doing this and I thought my life was in danger, negligence is always negligence, so you want to remember that. When you try to diffuse the fight, you use certain type of dialogue, okay? Obviously you can't diffuse the fight without going verbal first into physical. That's the concept when push comes to shove. The choice of speech when you're going to diffuse a fight is critical. And what that means is if, Kevin, come here. Or sorry, Kelly. Okay. If he gives me a little push, okay, I do this and I go, hey, listen, man, I don't want any trouble, and if you give me any trouble, I'm going to kick you. That's not diffusing the fight. That's antagonizing the fight. If someone's standing over here and he takes another step and I boot him, legally, they might nail me. But if my reaction, again, a little push, if my reaction is, hey, I really don't want any trouble, I don't know what your problem is, I don't know what I did, and you're backing off, what you're doing here is when we get through all this, you'll realize I'm actually setting the person up the whole time. But also, morally and legally, if there are any witnesses, and if it does go physical and someone does get hurt, everyone will go, hey, this person, he said, I don't want to fight. He was trying to defuse the fight the whole time, and the guy wouldn't back off. So one thing that's very important for the street is when you're using your speech to diffuse the fight, make sure it's choice words that will give you a direct indication of what this guy's intention is. So if I'm standing over here talking to this guy's girlfriend in a bar and I don't know it's his girlfriend, and he comes over and he goes, hey buddy, that's my girlfriend you're talking to. If I go, well, she's talking to me, obviously she's not too interested in you, that's antagonizing the situation. Whereas if I back off and I go, listen, you know, I don't want any trouble from you. I didn't know it was your girlfriend. She's very good looking. Go here, you know. And the guy still goes, well, you should have thought about that before. And he starts walking at you. You can use your martial arts training there to prepare, because we don't expect the fight always to happen. And that's our biggest drawback, is we freeze and hesitate in reality, which brings up something interesting, thanks, called consent and cooperation. And this is something that plagues most martial arts systems, most people that train in any type of fighting system, is that they consent to do what they're doing. Now that's great. You get up and you can do some sparring in your class. You consented to do that. You know what the rules are within your system, and you know that there's no contact here, and you got the pads on here and this and that. You go into the full contact kickboxing, that's great. You consented to do it. You signed a release form. You jumped in the ring. You did your training. No one consents to a street fight. And no one consents to where it will escalate. And that's an important consideration. So I always tell people, listen, you know, a lot of people have fallen down. Someone pushes you and you trip and you hit your head on a fire hydrant. And then you're in a coma for 6 months because you didn't want to fight because you're a pacifist. Now, I don't condone fighting, but I think that when someone gets physical, you should be able to distinguish as soon as possible, do you have to hit this person or not? And that's important to know how to do, and that's all the psychology. Your body language is a facade. Anytime a confrontation happens, you want to click into this detached state, which is this exterior, this facade that's going, look, I don't want any trouble with you, okay? I didn't do anything. I don't remember you from elementary school, if that's the problem. You want to keep this facade, but internally, what you're doing is you're going, come here a sec. He gives you a little push, okay? I do this, I go, look, I don't want any trouble, man. I don't know what your problem is. And I go, oh, his weight's on his left leg. His right hand's forward, which means he'll either grab me again with his left hand or he'll throw a punch with his right. But if I'm going to kick him, I'm going to kick his left leg because there's more weight on it. If he takes another step forward, and I go like this, you don't have to punch, okay? And we're like this, move back again, give a little push. I do this, okay, stop there. Now I see that his weight's on his right leg. Now, if you notice, I didn't look down. This is just a diffusing your vision thing. Now, if I went like this when he pushed me, and I went, look, I don't want any trouble, and I kind of adopted one of these tense stances. You see guys like going, you know, you see in high school, you know, yeah, you want some trouble, all that stuff. You got to stay away from that. Your adrenaline's going, and that's what it wants you to do, but you have to stay away from that. You got to get right into this, what we call the submissive strategy, because it just brings the guy right into your critical zone, and if he walks away, this goes for women, children, men, if he walks away at that point, like I go, look, I don't want any trouble. I mean, how many people would hit you if I went like this? I said, look at the size of you. I might be a little bit bigger than you, but I do not know how to fight. You will kill me. Maybe there's an off-duty cop in the bar here, and he's going to see what's happening, and I don't know, man. There's 5 bouncers. How many people are going to hit you if you start talking like that? Not many, but if the guy steps forward again, you right away have ascertained that this guy wants to fight. And he's kind of giving you carte blanche to unload on him there, because you really tried to diffuse that, okay? And it's an important concept. So this is your body language and also your speech that we covered. The choice of words is going to engender a reaction from this guy. If I'm antagonistic, I'll get him a little more defensive. I'm going to make him want to hit me. If my body language looks tense, even though I'm going, look, I don't want any trouble. You know, we've all seen that in the movie. Okay, guys, I don't want any trouble, but if I have to, you can't do that in reality. Okay, thanks. When to strike? Everyone always asks me, when do you strike? When you strike is when you've used all of these concepts, and that becomes really apparent at that moment. Because if you've done the submissive strategy, you've analyzed where the guy's going, and he's still doing this with the clenching of the fists, and he's looking at you, and he's grabbed your arm a couple of times, and he's shoved you. No one is allowed to invade your personal space, okay? You cannot be poking someone and shoving them and tweaking them and flicking them. You can't do that stuff. So there are obviously extenuating circumstances. If some people who are well-known gangsters are harassing you, you know they have guns and knives, you're obviously going to let your ego take more of a battering than you would if you were, you know, in high school, let's say, and it was one of the bullies at the school. So every environment will dictate to you what your reaction will be. And that's part of just being mature and evolved as a martial artist, is knowing when to walk. If it's a no-win situation, you walk or run. Okay, the on-off switch. What the on-off switch is, it's a mechanism inside of us that turns on when we have to use adrenaline. We've heard the stories of the father who picks up the car because it fell on the kid and all that stuff. That works. That's your chi, that's your adrenaline, whatever you want to call it. But a lot of us come to martial arts originally going, I'm kind of a pacifist. I'd like to know how to defend myself. I don't know if I could hit someone. We all have those, you know, you're whacking the bag and you're going, I wonder if I could do this to someone. You have to gain control of that on-off switch. That's so important. We don't walk around in Rambo mode waiting for, you know, some war to break out and they get ready to blast people. We're walking around having a good time going, hey, isn't this a great day? Isn't this nice? And then all of a sudden you walk around the corner, there's 3 guys there going with their bally song knives, and you're going, oh my God. You have to be able to click that switch to run, to diffuse it, and you've got to employ all the strategies. Because you're going to, and I keep re-emphasizing this because it's so important, you're going to make them more defensive towards attacking you or protecting themselves by doing anything aggressive. But if they think you're a pushover, they're going to get sloppy. They're going to get lazy on their defense. Okay? So that on-off switch is that killer instinct, really. That's the easiest thing to describe it as. It's your killer instinct. We've all had it or experienced it at some point. But you want to be able to go click and it's on. Power tripping. This is important because it's actually the root of how my psychology works. Most fights are power trips. If you've done any reading on rape, rape is not a sexual crime, it's a power trip. It's an ego thing. If you just analyze any fight that you ever see, it's a macho thing in the bar. That's my seat. Who fights over a piece of wood in a bar? That's my seat. And then they go shoving each other. That's my parking spot. These are people who are having a bad day, and they're taking it out on someone else. That's power tripping. To undermine a power tripper, you become a wimp. This is what I call the submissive strategy, or just be a wimp. Same thing for women. It's very important. If you completely react the way he thinks, he's going to go about whatever he's doing sloppily because he thinks you're terrified. But meanwhile, it's just a facade. And you're going, come a little closer to the telephone. I don't want to, please don't. Come a little closer. You know, your mind is reacting like that. He gets in there, bam, and you're hitting him with something. Could be a finger jab to the eye, a knee, or a weapon in the house. So that's power tripping. Just remember that almost every situation, 99% of those situations, are power tripping situations, and just use that to your advantage. Realize that the psychology here, the submissive psychology, will get right into the power tripper, because there's nothing he can do about that. That's his problem. Fear. You can't deny fear. Anyone who tells you that they're not afraid when they get in the ring or they're going to spar. I've been training for 15 years. I've trained, done some training with Sugar Ray Leonard, with Matthew Hilton, who's a current world champion. These guys are killers. But when I get in the ring with them, I don't go, I'm Tony Blauer, I'm a karate expert. I'm going, oh my God, I hope I don't die tonight. Because these guys, they're professional warriors. And I'm afraid, you're afraid, everyone's afraid. And if someone tells you not, they're either they're nuts or they're lying to you. And what you want to do is use that fear in the street to enhance your speech and your body language, because it'll be real for a moment. Well, how do you get rid of the fear? How do you displace the fear? By concentrating on a particular strategy, you displace it. If you're standing there going, oh my God, look at the size of this guy, and that's real, you're not going to fight. But if you're there and you're going, at first you go, oh my God, look at the size of this guy, okay, but I got a great reverse punch to his groin because he's so tall. And you start thinking about where you're going to go. Oh, his weight's on his lead leg, so if I side kick his knee here, or he's leaning over because he's so tall, if I put my hands up like that submissive stance position here, then I can finger jab him real directly, you'll find that your fear is almost gone, because all of a sudden you're concentrating on a strategy. Degrees of counter. This is important because we're getting back to negligence in the law. Come here a sec. When you're defending, we've gone through the verbal diffusion stage. We're defending now. The guy has done this. Give me a little push. I do this. I go, I don't want any trouble. Stop there. Okay? I don't want any trouble. Notice I'm backing him up. I'm making him walk into me. I have to decide, and this is just a judgment call, how hard do I hit this guy? How do we know that at the moment when your adrenaline's going? You don't know that ever. But depending on where I am, environment is very important. If this were happening in a shopping center and you bumped into someone, it was one of those you're talking to me situations, well, you want to control it. You want to get the guy in maybe a grappling move and hold him there, or a wrist application, or a little bit of pain, and go, listen, I told you not to start with me. I told you I didn't want to fight. Now look at you. You're walking down an alley, you're taking a shortcut, which you shouldn't do, and you're walking down this alley, and a guy jumps out. It's not going to be the same reaction. There, we see how the environment, guy's out there, and he's got the biker boots on, and he's got a knife or something, or let's take the weapon out of there. It's just the environment. You know you have to be more lethal with what you do, and you don't know how many guys are in there. So in this situation, you give me a little push. I'm like this. I walk back here, stop there. I'm now setting him up. I'm using the diffusing tactic verbally. I'm diffusing my vision so I can see what's happening. Now I decide, what am I going to do? Just go to grab me with this hand very slowly. I just want to show you 3 types of reactions. I'm like this. He grabs, I slap the hand away. At this point here, I can hit, let's say, a nerve strike to the tricep. I could hit to the elbow, but maybe I'll break his elbow. That's excessive force, maybe. You have to decide that. Here I'll hit to the elbow, it's very painful. Now at this point here, I could tie kick his leg, which is just swing your shin real hard into there and Charlie horsing his leg. He's got to go home and tell everyone that he lost a fight from a Charlie horse, okay, which is kind of embarrassing. That's a very good moral kick. If you learn how to use that, just jamming your shin into the guy's leg, anywhere on the leg, it kills. We've all been Charlie horse. But this situation, here's the single grab, where he goes to shove. I pop his arm out, I hit his arm here, I step in, I knee him in the leg, he'll fall down. You can grab his hair and throw him down and go, look, I told you I didn't want any trouble. Now, once again, very slowly, I'm here like this. I grab him here. I realize that this guy needs a little bit more. This is your second degree. Here, I got to strike right into the eyes. Once I've hit him to the eyes, I can step in and palm strike him. That'll stun him, and you can get out of there. You might be having a situation, he grabs again. We're here like this. Same reaction here. Slam right in with the palm strike. Here, I'll grab his neck and do a headbutt, jam his head into my shoulder, elbow him. You can really clean the guy out. What you want to practice, thanks. What you want to practice are 3 reactions to every type of confrontation that you think you could get in. And that means the 2-hand grab, the single arm shove, left hand, right hand, the tackle. Learn 3 reactions. Learn a control reaction, learn a little bit of pain reaction, because pain is a great instrument sometimes, and learn where you got to drop the person because it's your life or his, or it could go that far. Okay, that's very important. Acting choices. Acting is kind of weird, but what you notice here is that a lot of this requires you maybe not to be the actual character that you are inside, that you're creating this facade. And it's important to practice that, and that's why I said in the beginning that everyone practices their kicks, and you get great kicks and punches and blocks and all that, but no one practices how you're going to act. But we're all actors in real life. When you go up to a police officer, or a police officer comes up to you to give you a ticket, you're not going, hi, how you doing? You're going, did I do something, officer? And you're very nervous, you're paranoid. You feel, oh, my brake light's out too, I wonder if you noticed that. You get really paranoid. You're not going to talk to a little kid, your nephew, the same way. You don't go up and go, hi, Jimmy, how are you? You're going to go up and you're going to start talking baby talk, which I'm not going to do now because that's too embarrassing. But you're going to talk baby talk to the kid. You talk a certain way to your parents. You talk a certain way to your friends. You talk a different way to another friend. That's important to realize that we're all actors in real life. And all I'm asking you to be here is draw from some of that experience and be a real actor to save your life in a street situation. Because if you drop into the stance, if you take your boxing stance, if someone goes like this to me and goes and takes that position, I go, probably a Taekwondo influence. Guy does this, oh, he's probably a boxer. Guy does this, Thai boxer. Guy does this, that hard Japanese style. Guy, you know, is in like this, Kung Fu. Right away, he's telegraphing what he does and what he knows. When you're like this, what are you? You're going, hey, I don't want any trouble. Guy's right in there. So your acting choice there is using that submissive strategy. Sometimes you want to do something that's a little bit more assertive. You don't feel too good about that. I'll give you a great example. I taught this woman once. One of the strategies I teach women is if the opportunity presents itself, turn the situation around in a raping situation and become very promiscuous. Turn it around because it's a power trip and the person is going, I want this person to be very vulnerable and to cry and to break down. You turn it around and become promiscuous, and this lady, she took this guy home from work for dinner, very innocent dinner. And you know how some guys are, they think dinner means, and what she said, let's go to a movie, and she went into the washroom to change or to fix up her hair or whatever, and she's looking in the mirror, putting on her makeup, and she sees this guy's head there. And she goes, hi, and he grabs her by the shoulder and slams her into the shower doors. She's startled, obviously, freaking out. But now she starts to think about the strategies that I told her. And she turned this around because he was saying whatever he was saying. And she looked at him and she said, hey, relax. We're going to go to bed. And he stopped and he looked at her like this. And she said, I think you're quite cute. Why do you think I invited you up to her? And she took a step towards him. And he did this, and she went, whap, just kneed him right in the groin. He doubled over, and she took off. I mean, that's all it was. It was just becoming an actress for a second to undo it. If she had done the panic thing, who knows what would have happened. So that's your acting choices. An incident happened a couple years ago in Montreal where there was this black belt who was working at a little corner store. And I didn't know him. I don't know him. But he apparently had arrived at some of the same conclusions I had about street situations. And this robber came in who was obviously his first time doing a robbery because he was really nervous. And he walks in there and he's like this. He's going, give me the money, give me the money. He's freaking out. He's not really paying attention. And the guy right away went into this panic trip. Don't shoot me, don't shoot me, shut up, give me the money. And it's going back and forth like this. It's really animated, and he probably at the time didn't know. You don't know, but if you think of something, you're not thinking about your fear. And that's one of the important points here. Don't concentrate on your fear. Think of something else. And he's shuffling all the money out, and the guy, the robber, is looking at this black belt, who he doesn't know is a black belt, quite obviously, and he goes, well, he's reacting the way he should be. He's very nervous. He kind of took his eyes off him and walked over near the counter to check out the door. And the black belt had walked around the counter to give the guy the money. And the guy went, here, just give me that. And he turned his head for a second, the guy just nailed him with a reverse punch and knocked him out. Now, I don't recommend that you, with a knife or gun, unless you're very skilled and very confident, you think you might lose your life reacting to a weapon situation. But here's a guy that did everything. He developed a strategy right away. He used his vulnerability, because the guy had a weapon. He diffused his vision so that he was doing what he had to do, getting the money, but at the same time watching the guy's reaction to go, can I do something here? He diffused the fight in terms of keeping the guy aggressive. Like if you kind of look at a robber like this, he's gonna do this more. He's gonna get that itchy trigger finger. But if you're doing the, don't shoot me, please don't shoot me, and you're whining, the guy's gonna, come on, you know, give me the money. He used body language, he used the speech. He chose when to strike, that one chance that he had against a gun. He flicked the switch, killer instinct right away, because you got to flick the switch there, because you're doing this external passive stuff. And he knew which degree of counter to throw. And he knocked the guy out. And this was in the paper, which is how I heard about it. It was really interesting just to read that and go, this is what I'm teaching. Where is this guy? I'm going to kill him. Okay. Concepts. This is very important. Once you understand the psychology here, all these concepts, you got to apply them to physical concepts in the street, which I covered some of them. What you want to realize is we all practice certain blocks and certain strikes, but they're all based on a stance. Now, I have a theory about street situations, and that is if you adjust your stance to enhance a particular technique, you negate the spontaneous use of another one. That means if I decide I'm going to front kick, and I really load up here and I got my weight ready to front kick here, I've lost the spontaneity of my lead leg. If I decide I'm going to reverse punch and I really cock this hand here, I've lost some of the spontaneity here because I'm choosing. I'm isolating, I'm directing thought patterns to different techniques. Never fixate on what you're going to do unless the guy is so telegraphic that you can go, and you know, you can have this whole strategy written out before he even attacks. But usually what the case is, you need this, what I call circumstantial spontaneity, which means you use the circumstances to react spontaneously with an improvised effective technique. Okay, so what we're getting at here is really understanding your reactions and your balance. Everyone has natural stances, and since we're dealing with street psychology, you have to monitor your natural stances. That means that some of you might stand like this a lot. Some of you might stand like this, some of you like this. Monitor your natural stances, and from those stances, analyze what techniques you could use. Kevin, come here. Just stand here like we're having some trouble in the street. If this is my natural stance here like this, and he goes to grab me, don't do it yet. He goes to grab me, and the only block that I've ever learned was this for a lead arm. And you go to grab me, and I do that. He's going to get the shot in here. When I hit him here, I'm going to pull him this way. He's going to take my head off with a hook punch. That was the wrong move. From this position, if he goes to grab me, if I'm just looking at him come in with the grab, I got to do something a little more evasive, which gets back to the yin-yang principle. Don't oppose the force. Hard blocks are great when they're functional, meaning that there's a purpose there, you're going to do it. But when you're doing the street stuff and the guy's doing the little pushing things, make him lose his balance. Because if I'm like this, grab me for real. I'm right on top of him here. I can nail him here. I can headbutt him here. I got his eyes. I'm right on there. And all I did is just flick like this. And this is something anyone can do. Because all you're doing is flicking his energy away. It's called redirecting it. And you want to play with that stuff. And that's doing it out of your natural stances. That means that if I'm standing like this and he grabs me, my movement grab should be like this. Now this hand's right here, and I'm right in here with the elbow. I can go to the leg, with the knee. I can come up inside. You have everything there. That's street tactics. So you want to monitor your natural stances. Your balance also plays a part in all this. You see how he's standing now? If I were going to attack him, he's the bad guy, I'm the good guy, I'm not going to hit this leg because there's no weight on it. So the impact is less. I want to hit here because he's got all his weight on it. If I'm going to shove him, let's talk, there's this concept called fault lines. Don't move. See the way his heels are? Draw a straight line. Anytime you're fighting anyone, you're going to kick an air shield, you're going to do a grappling situation with someone, you got to palm strike someone for real life in the street, whatever. When you learn to diffuse your vision, you'll see their feet. Draw a straight line across their feet and then draw a right angle off of that. Okay? So that's this and then that. And that's his weak line, what I call the fault line. So if I went, hey, listen, he's got to fall. Where he's in the same position if I went, hey, listen, he's hard. Hey, listen, there he's got to fall. So anytime when I do, let's say, a demonstration or an air shield, and I want to kick someone, I'm not going to kick into where his force is, where his natural mass is. I take a look at how the guy's standing, because everyone holds the air shield different. Some guys go like this, and some guys go like this, and some guys go like that. And all I do is I look at their feet first. Of course, I don't tell them this. And I look at that fault line. And then I'll angle my kick to hit that fault line so that the reaction is enhanced. It's not a trick. It's not a cheap trick, because that's what I would do for in real life. I want the person to be as off balance as possible, and so do you. Okay? So you want to analyze your positions. Thanks, Kev. Okay? Hand positions. Kevin, that was great. Come back here. What you want to do here is work on different hand positions. And that means if you're using the submissive strategy, if you think it's a good idea, you don't want to do this. He gives me a little push, and I go, I don't want any trouble. Poor speech. My body's tense. My hands look like I'm going to zap him with Spider-Man spray or something. What you want to do here is practice what are your hand positions. Practice them so they're realistic. Now watch. He gives me a little push, and I go, hey, whoa. When you practice that and the fingers open up and the hands come out, that's more realistic. It relaxed my body. I went, look, anyone who's standing in front of me is not going to rush in there. Guy's got to be a terrorist to hit you at that point, because he thinks you're afraid. He goes, great, I've got this guy. Now, usually what will happen with a power tripper is he's going to walk right in on you at that point. So you start again. He gives me a little push. I do this. I go, hey, I don't want any trouble, man. Now he's going to step in to poke me on the chest or something. At that point, he's walking right into this. He's never even going to see that shot to the face. And if I wanted to, start again, a little push. I go, I don't want any trouble. He steps in again. Look where the hand lands. His head falls right into me. It could have been an elbow if he fell forward. His energy, once again, will dictate what my counter will be. And the thing is, this stuff is irrefutable. You just have to do it, and you go, oh my God, this is so simple. Okay? Instant attack. Instant attack means learn to hit from where you are. Too many people reposition themselves when they don't have to. For example, if I'm like this, and I realize that, like, this guy's doing this to me, and I'm going, look, I don't want any trouble, man. And I decide that I'm going to hit him, I'm not going to do this and go, look, I said it. Once again, that's tipping it off. If I'm here like this, and I go, bam, and my shot comes in to him from there, he'll never block it. If I do this, I go, look, I told you, and my shot comes in from there, or I scratch my back and slash his face. Learn to use those natural positions. I did this one night at my school. It was 11 o'clock. I was cleaning up. And two guys walk in. I didn't notice the time. And the conversation evolves to, so this is a street system. I went, yeah. And there's one guy here and one guy here. And they said, so you could defend yourself against two guys. Suddenly I go, it's 11 o'clock. There's two guys at my school. And my school is not on a main street. It's like you have to deliberately get there. And I'm going, hey, this is getting a little weird. And they're standing there. I said, well, you know, sometimes there's one guy here, one guy here. I said, sometimes you have to use what I call little deception or technical cunning when you're in a fight. For example, and I do this. Now, you see Kevin look down at my hand as I did that? And I went, whap, and the shot came right in. I just touched the guy's nose, and then I grabbed this guy here and pulled him between. And these guys were like, because they had no, now, if I had gone, yes, I can defend myself against two guys, I'm setting them up to get defensive. But you see, what I did there is I played right into it. I put my hand out like this and rubbed it. That was a really strange thing to do. They both looked at it, bang. And that was it. So there was no fight, and there might not have ever been one, but just in case, these guys were like, and they left really quickly, and they never signed up. So they either weren't impressed or they were impressed. Okay, so instant attack is just hitting from where you are. Moving the center line is a very important concept. Your center line is an imaginary line that runs down your body, and it connects you with your opponent. So you could be a wrestler or a boxer, doesn't matter. This is Kevin's center line. This is my center line. Anytime an attack happens, you want to move your center line, because any strike that comes in is attacking on your center line, whether the guy who's attacking you understands that or not. And that means that I'm not going to punch over here, I'm going to punch here for maximum impact. So what happens is, do a grab. If I'm here like this, and I do that, I move my center line. He's out here, he's got to reposition to hit me, which means now you come back with a hook punch. I can just stop it here and take the guy out with whatever I want to do, because it's going to be so telegraphic, he's going to come around. If I did this, grab me again, I'm here like this, and I went like this, and I didn't move my center line, and he throws a hook punch, I might block it, but I get very defensive. Always adjust your center line. So if someone grabs you, he's got a two-handed grab here, and what I do is, okay, let go again. As this is happening, I would hit. Okay? So if he steps in slowly with a two-handed grab, so everyone sees what's happening, I'm adjusting here. I moved my center line always, because from here I've got the neck, and I got the elbow, I got the headbutt, I got the knee. And that's what you want to realize. Diffusing your vision, also notice I can go to all those targets without looking. You don't want to go, okay. He's going to see you do that quite obviously. Diffusing your vision will also help you spontaneously throw techniques. That's moving the center line. Reflexive response and choice response are two intertwined concepts. Reflexive response is when something scares you to respond. Like I pick up a ball and I go, hey Dan, and I whip it, and you go. Well, what we do in my system is we look for reflexes and try and find techniques from different systems that imitate those reflexes, which means I don't have to teach your body to undo something, like to pull back here or to do that. Is that if this is a natural response to do this, and he steps in with a two-handed grab, and I go, this might look bad to a technical martial artist, but this is a great move because I've got him here. I can do whatever I want there. So what you learn to do is you take your reflexes, you modify them so they become reactions. So what you're actually getting is a faster reaction time, because there's reflex enhancing the movement of a reaction. Most people learn different reactions, which means they're reteaching their body. When you're under stress and your body's tense, those reactions will slow down. How many times do you find yourself when you're sparring or doing something, you go, oh, I just missed that opening. I was open there, why didn't I hit him? That's because you're trying to use reactions. If you're using reflexes, you'd be hitting the person. That means you have to be devoid of thought there. You just have to spontaneously move into those openings. That's very difficult. Anticipating attack. We discussed a little bit before, never anticipate. If I'm here like this, put your hands up, you're in the submissive stance. Okay, we're practicing at the school, getting back to cooperating and consent. And I go, okay, you think the guy's going to grab you because he just shoved you 5 times. Ready? Okay, block the shove. And I do this. You don't know the guy's not going to kick you in the groin. So if you're at the school always cooperating and never doing any drills where the guy goes, wait a minute. Like I used to do this at my school, it was a couple of years ago. I'd say, grab me, and the guy would do some sort of grab that would negate my reaction. Like it just wouldn't happen. And I go, who grabs like that? Come on, people grab like this. And I found myself, my ego was saying, no one grabs like that. Well, he just did. What are you doing? That move's not in this, you're not allowed to use that. Well, I just hit you in the face. Why didn't you block it? That's my concept. If the guy got in, you did something wrong. You give him credit. Because if you are so structured and you've established such parameters for yourself that you only let certain styles hit you, certain techniques and certain movements, then you're missing a fundamental point about self-defense. And that means that the guy is not going to announce to you what you're going to do. He's just going to do it. And you've got to be prepared for everything. Okay. Where to focus? In general, when you control that diffusing your vision, you can look at the guy in the eye. I can see his feet. Move one of your fingers. Okay, that's too big. Really subtle. Okay, I can see which hands he's moving. It's kind of hard to demonstrate. A good drill for you to do with this is this type of drill. You close your eyes and you have the person adopt a stance. It could be like this, it could be like this, it could be like this. Keep your eyes closed. He says, okay. What you do is you open your eyes for a split second like this. Then close them again and describe his stance. I'll show you that. Hopefully it'll work here. So I'm going to close my eyes and you get into any position and you hold it. So don't move it, okay? Okay, get into a stance. It doesn't have to be a fighting stance. It can be any type of position. And tell me when it's okay to open.
Okay.
Okay, now don't move it. Okay, now my eyes are closed. He's got his weight on his back leg, which is his left leg. His right arm is leaning against his thigh. His other hand is near his hip. He's kind of upright with his body, but his weight's kind of in this position. Okay, so that's very close. And I just did that with a blink, and I saw that whole thing. Obviously, you don't have to fight with your eyes closed, so that's not a problem. You can take your time while you're talking. You can even reposition yourself, which is part of attack repositioning. The next thing is if you find that he's in a position where you got a great technique that'll drop this guy and you know you got to do it, learn to reposition yourself as casually as possible. Sometimes you might find yourself, like, let's say you're sitting and you got your feet wrapped in a bar stool and you've got one hand around someone and you got a drink in another hand and someone starts with you over here and your feet are like, snug in the bar stool. You can't do anything. You're going to hit the guy like this? You have no torque. You can't twist your hips. You have to reposition yourself. But when you reposition yourself, you have to do it in such a way that this guy doesn't think you're going to fight. It's got to be still within the submissive strategy. Okay? So that's attack repositioning. We discussed the 4 ranges of fighting: kicking, boxing, trapping, and grappling. You want to investigate all of them. It's great to train in different martial arts, traditional, because they give you a base, a foundation. And then you go off from there. And you figure out. A lot of my students train at my system, which is very eclectic, and we don't wear uniforms or any bowing or anything, but they still train at other schools too, the art that they love. But they come to my school to learn the psychology and to get in the ring and that type of thing. Sub-ranges. Within these 4 ranges of fighting, there are sub-ranges. For example, take a fighting stance. In boxing range, I also can step in and hit with an elbow. I can step right in and headbutt. I can step right up in and throw the knee. I can come up with this leg. If I throw a front kick to the groin or to the knee, I also have the tie kick, which is the shin, coming across. This is very important that you understand what the sub-ranges are and where they overlap, because that's how you negate the range the guy's fighting in. So if he adopts a boxing stance, your best thing to do is fight him at kicking range or trapping range. Move to the range that he's not comfortable with. So that means, take your boxing stance, that I would either hit him with long shots out here, or I would wait for him to strike. So you step in with a jab, and I make a move here where I'll move right into this range. Because here, this isn't much power, unless the guy knows trapping range, and I'll find that out really fast because he'll drill me in the head with an elbow. And then I'll take him down on the ground. Hopefully he doesn't know grappling. Okay? So this is very important, that you understand what the sub-range is. Another example of sub-ranges is that in a grab situation, you're just holding me here, I'm like this. Well, do I finger jab? Do I palm strike? Do I grab his head? Do I headbutt him? Do I elbow him? These are all different sub-ranges within the range of trapping. Okay, so you want to experiment with that. Kneeing and tie kicks and front kicks or round kicks or hook kicks or side kicks all are different extensions of the leg, because you've got the toes, you've got the knee, you've got the shin. They work their way up to the thigh, to the hip. You can hip check someone in an in-close grappling situation. You just want to unbalance them. Think of using distractions. Okay, if some guy grabs you, grab on. Okay, if he grabs me like this, rather than going and trying to hit him where he blocks, I'll pop a nerve here like that and then shoot a shot into his neck, then slam a shot into his bicep. He's going to let go of me at that point, and then I can take him out. So learn to use distractions. Okay? Sensitivity is the last thing that we have to discuss. That's not true. Sensitivity is one of the last things we have to discuss. Sensitivity is your ability to read the guy's energy. And that means, okay, grab me. If we're like this, and I do this type of thing here, there's a stick here. And a lot of people try to make sensitivity out to be something very magical. And all it is just reading the guy's energy. At this point here, if he pulls a hand out to hook punch me, which will obviously be his right hand, because I shifted the center line, pull your hand out, I could hit the guy right away with a shot. If we're back here like that, if he pulls his hand out again, pull it out, I can move right in here. And look how I just opened him up here. I can jam this in, I could headbutt him, I could bring the knee up. So what you want to do is combine the center line shift and sensitivity, which is just when the guy opens up, it's like a tap. You feel that energy open, bang, let a shot go there. Neck control. If you can, always grab the guy's neck. That means this. Grab me again, two-hand grab. If I'm like this here, and I make a move, you see how he lost his balance? So I hit him, I step backwards. I grab his neck right away. Stand up a little bit. We're here like this. Now I don't even have to watch him. Come in with a knee. As soon as he goes to knee me, I'll move him. Come in with a punch. As soon as he goes to punch, I'll move him. Now I'm talking to the guy and going, look, I don't want any trouble. Come in with a knee again. As soon as I feel anything, come in with an uppercut. I'm just going to stop him here. Anyone can do this. And if I wanted to, obviously at this point I could take him out with something. Okay? That's pretty much it as far as psychology and the concepts go. If you follow all of this stuff, I'll leave it up here so you can mark it down if you find some of the things interesting. If you follow the psychology, you have to work on it, just like any of your other techniques. You got to work on it. This is, we've all heard about how mind, spirit, body. But if you think about it, how many of us actually work that? You got to work the physical, and you got to work the mind, and that'll create the spirit, the balance there. And you work the concepts, you're going to be fine in the street. And that's the most important thing here. So the whole essence of my system is reality in the street, not who can kickbox better, who can break more boards. It's just street sense. Okay, all of these concepts are fine and dandy, but you have to work on different techniques, applications, to bring out that confidence in you. So what we have several other tapes that include all of the drills that I teach at my school, which will bring out the neuromuscular response, the neurophysiological response, all of those reflexive things, and all of the realistic drills using some pretty far out equipment, plexiglass helmets and all of these gears, hockey shin pads and chest protectors, you won't believe it. Where you see sensitivity training, you'll see grappling, you'll see what we call the panic attack, all done, full force, pretty much full speed. So you might want to check out the tapes because they are the logical extension once you've applied the psychology and the concepts. I'd like to thank you all for being so attentive, and I hope you've learned a lot of stuff here. If you have any questions, feel free to write me at my school, and thanks again for coming.